On November 6, 1987, William Bennett, Ronald Reagan's Secretary of Education, paid a visit to Chicago. It didn't take long for him to get the city's attention.
You've got close to educational meltdown here in Chicago.
Is there a worst case? You tell me.
Bennett likely never called Chicago's schools the, quote, worst in the nation. That may have been the invention of an overzealous headline writer. Yet the phrase stuck, and the city has been trying to escape it ever since.
The worst in the nation.
Worst in the nation.
Chicago's public schools, the worst in the nation.
The worst district in the nation.
The worst schools in the country.
Our schools were the worst in the nation.
Worst schools anywhere in America.
Yep.
So why has a comment that may not have actually been said, and probably wasn't true anyway, had such staying power? And what will it take to lose that title for good? First, a little context. By the fall of 1987, evidence had been mounting for years that the Chicago public schools were in crisis.
The statistics look grim.
More than 45% of freshmen end up as dropouts.
Half the Chicago high schools ranked in the bottom 1% nationwide.
The public school system seems to have lost the confidence of the public.
I took my oldest daughter to school, and I truly felt that if I left my daughter there that day, I would not see her ever again alive. It was just that bad.
Critics of the schools found a ready target for their frustration: the district's massive central office on Pershing Road, a one-time Army surplus warehouse, now home to 3,000 CPS administrators.
We just knew that the board kept on getting their budgetary increases, but that money wasn't making it to the local level. It was stopping at Pershing Road.
The major problem with the Chicago public school system is the Chicago public school system.
The system was so centralized that it was very difficult to know where to get in to make a difference. And then in '87, the teachers went on strike again. It was their 9th strike in 19 years, and people were just like beside themselves.
The strike lasted almost a month, even today the longest in the district's history, infuriating parents and posing a challenge to Harold Washington, the city's first black mayor, who'd just been reelected to a second term.
That strike and the way the parents and the community responded changed him. But he was able to take that change and give it form, to give it back to the community.
It's going to be a long, tough road. You're going to get tired of seeing your mayor talking to you about education in the city. Can you stand it? Let's go.
Washington invited parents to a series of community forums that also included business leaders and grassroots advocates who'd already been working for years to try to reform the district.
All students enrolled in the Chicago public schools have a right to a quality education.
The discussions were very freewheeling, and I would say with gloves off.
Principals have to have control over their schools.
Parent input must be encouraged.
Bottom line is, for once, let the children come first. Thank you.
People had a stake in it, and they finally had a voice.
The mom, the dad, the teachers, not the policymakers, not the politicians, the people, the grassroots. They get a say. They get a seat at the table.
It was in the midst of all of this that a coalition of business leaders known as Chicago United invited William Bennett for a closed-door conversation about the state of the Chicago public schools.
William Bennett was the Secretary of Education.
He was a Republican, was more conservative.
Very outgoing chap who expresses himself whenever asked.
And he went to this meeting, and he came out, and there were a handful of reporters there. I was there, and he just said somewhat casually that if there's a worse school system in the country, I haven't seen it.
I'm not sure that there is a system in the country that is as bad as a Chicago system.
So it's like, whoa, from the U.S. Secretary of Education, that's a powerful statement.
And I remember distinctly thinking, Bill Bennett, the Secretary of Education, said this?
He called me late in the day and he said, why are people in Chicago all upset?
I mean, people in any city don't like some national person parachuting in and saying they're the worst at anything.
He has to be crazy to say something like that, you know, where
did he get this information from? What are the facts behind this?
Bennett went back to Washington and asked one of his chief aides, am I right? And he said, close enough.
I think he's picked the wrong city to stand astride of and spout that kind of venom. What he should do is go back to Washington, D.C. and have the Reagan administration reassess its faulted and failed program.
Why did he choose Chicago? Why was Chicago chosen? Personally, I thought because the city is predominantly black and Hispanic in terms of school-age population.
We saw it as an attack of the people that wanted to get rid of the public school system, privatize it.
Still, for critics of Pershing Road, Bennett's comments carried a kernel of truth. They may not have liked the messenger, but the message echoed what they'd been saying all along.
You would want somebody high up calling out the system. But William Bennett.
It wasn't like he generated the reform effort, but it really provided yet another sort of boost of energy for the reform movement.
So it did not start with Bill Bennett, but he certainly put an exclamation point on it.
Just 3 weeks after Bennett's visit to Chicago, Harold Washington died of a massive heart attack at the age of 65.
And people were like, they were going to do it for Harold. They were going to bring home a reform because Harold had appointed them to be on this committee.
And so this subgroup from the summit put together the legislation, took it down to Springfield, and Mike Madigan did something also that was amazing. He called everybody into the room, representatives of all the different groups, and said, let's write this Reform Act.
They passed a law that radically transformed the school system into a democratic model.
At the heart of the law was the creation of elected local school councils at nearly every one of the district's 594 schools.
I want it to be vibrant. I want it to be alive and creative. There's so many programs and things we can do.
Moving authority to the local school council to hire and fire the principal, giving the principal and local school councils authority over the budget was just huge.
The Reform Act of 1988 marked the beginning of a quarter century of dramatic change in the Chicago public schools.
This is not the CPS that William Bennett described. We aren't the worst, we're the biggest turnaround.
But despite rising graduation rates and higher test scores, some things look an awful lot like 1987.
Hands off our school!
Many parents feel like their voices aren't being heard.
They are not listening to the people.
That their schools are under-resourced.
Whose schools? Our school!
Emotions are running high.
The schools are under attack! What do we do? Fight back!
So how do the Chicago public schools shake the stigma of worst in the nation? And more importantly, how do we build a system that effectively serves every student in the city, from Roseland to Rogers Park, Austin to the Lake? It's an ongoing debate, and we want to hear from you. Your stories, your opinions, your solutions. Join the discussion at schoolprojectfilm.com and help create a new conversation about the state of our schools, the fate of our city, and the future of public education in America.